Good evening and welcome to Empower You. It's good to see those of you who braved this cold weather to come out. I was in all day. I didn't want to come out till I had to either. Believe it or not, we are in the last stages of the semester. We've only got I guess we got 4 classes. One of those is in December. So it has really sped by really fast for me. I don't know if it has for you or not. I just want to remind you that we will be taking questions tonight. And if you have a question, please raise your hand. Wait for one of us to bring a microphone to you so that you can, everybody can hear your question as well as the people online. And I also want to remind you that we do like to have your suggestions for classes. You can go to info@empoweruohio.org and give us your suggestions for classes, or you can tell me. I'd prefer you write it down because I don't trust my memory. But if you want to just write it down and hand something to me, I appreciate that. We also like your comments about how we're doing, if we're doing good, if we're doing bad, whatever it is. You can also leave that on that website. And also, towards the end of our class, we will be passing around our little red buckets. Any donation that you can give to help our operation, we appreciate. We are a free university and we run on donations only. Next, I'd like to go over our next classes coming up. This Thursday is about the debt, and our own Dan Reagan, founder of Empower You, will be the teacher that night. I'm not going to tell you about his class because I'm going to let him do that. He knows a lot more about it than I do. And next Tuesday, we have Over the Rhine. Historian Don Tolzman will be here telling us about Over the Rhine, how Over the Rhine got its name, and about some of the historic buildings and the German people that settled there and that kind of thing. He's very interesting. If you were here a couple semesters ago, he did a class on the suspension bridge. He's real interesting. Then next Thursday, we have the assassination of JFK. I know a lot of you here are familiar with J.T. Townsend. He's a local crime writer, and he's got 3 or 4 books on different crimes here in Cincinnati. He usually brings in a crowd because everybody's fascinated with his stories. Well, he has not written a book on the assassination of JFK, but he told me when he wanted to do this class, he said, I have solved the riddle. So any questions that you have about whether the assassination was a conspiracy, he's going to solve that problem for you. So I'm going to hold him to that because he told me he has solved it. In our last class, normally next week would have been the end, but we decided to do something different this year. In December, December 17th, we're going to be having a Christmas memories class. Dolores Ray is a local gal who sings Rosemary Clooney and Doris Day songs, and she's going to be here performing for us. It's a great program. It's much in demand at Christmas time. As a matter of fact, the night they're going to be here is not one of their regular nights to perform. They're doing that just for us. So I hope you'll support that and come out and see them. And if Dan would please come up and you get your tickets out, we're going to have our drawing.
I'm going to ask our guest to pick a ticket for us tonight. Thank you. How about number 359? 359, right in the front row. And your name again? Five's a little crooked. Your name again is Tom. Tom, you are going to win a book from Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People in a Digital Age. Let's give it up for our guest winner tonight. Also, we have two of our students, Barbara and Gary Horowitz, that are late in getting their plaque for being an empowered citizen. Let's congratulate them. Thank you, guys. Way to go. Congratulations. I just wanted to thank our team real quick who helped make these sessions possible. Betty Overstreet, our executive director, let's thank her. Our producer, Jay Grunke, let's thank him in the back, Jay. And Bill Roll has added a new title of chauffeur onto his resume of responsibilities. Let's thank Bill in the back. So just a couple of things I wanted to go over before we start our program. So being in the picture frame business, you always have some interesting things come up. I wanted to show you the newest addition to the wall here. It's this image right here. The strange things I encounter. One day about 15 years ago, I was in my office and I got this phone call and they said, "Cher's on the phone for you." And I said, "Oh, really?" And lo and behold, it was her, but this was a little different one. This was an image that a guy from Los Angeles called me about. He said, yeah, he said, 15 years ago, I bought the rights on eBay to a Donald Trump image called Dream Big. And this is what it looks like. And I actually thought it was a pretty cool image and a pretty interesting thing that somebody would say. He got super excited about it and said, well, I'm going to go to the campaign and these will be all over next year, and asked me to frame a bunch of them up for him. And I asked him if we could keep one. So I thought that was kind of an interesting addition to the wall. So you can check that out when you get a chance. I know we've been following the progress of the sales tax petition in Hamilton County. Our friend, Mr. Janis back there, has been collecting signatures. Mr. Janis, would you give us the thumbs up or thumbs down on that ballot petition request? So that sales tax petition will not pass. I hope you'll come Thursday night to hear my talk about the deficit mess. And I think I'll have some interesting things. I'll have a couple solutions for you, possible solutions for you. But if you can direct your sight to this visual over here, sorry, I'll move this up for Thursday night. One of the things I'll be kind of walking you through is this Ponzi scheme of a budget we've got, where this outer layer is kind of the are the expenses of the government. And what you'll find is that between the Department of Defense, interest on the debt, Social Security, Medicare and Medicaid, that fully two-thirds of all the spending is mandatory. There's nothing that can be done about it. It can't be lowered, it can't be increased. So when you try to tackle the problem of $1 trillion deficit and 65% of what you're trying to tackle is off the table, it's hard work. I'm gonna tell you about that. I'll tell you about some of the other landmines that are coming up that we might run into in the next couple of years. And Jack Atherton, the former anchor at Channel 5 and Fox 19, will be here that night also. He's a friend of Empower You. He's talked to us about media. I'm kind of baiting him. Don't tell him if you see him, because we're going to be keeping track of the media and how much each candidate gets once the presidential candidates are decided, just like we did 4 years ago. I'm going to ask Jack to give us some guidance about how we want to do that and if we want to change our approach at all. But he'll be here Thursday night just to fill you in on what he's been up to tell you about a new endeavor of his, and just to say hello. He's a great guy. We have the ending of our penny challenge. Those of you, I don't have my form up here, but if you've seen the penny back there, I've kind of got a contest. What's that mean? There's going to be a big prize awarded Thursday night, and Betty has some forms back there you can fill out if you think you know what it means. Take a challenge, take a chance. It should be fun. So my wife's favorite program is Dateline. It doesn't matter what we're doing, no matter what's going on, no matter if the kids are coming over, the grandkids, Friday night, we're in front of the TV, usually with a glass of wine. And when I saw the incredible story that's going to be told to you tonight, I just couldn't believe it. I was just so shocked by it, so appalled by it. I had a son who went to Ohio State, graduated 3 or 4 years ago. Had always been scared about Columbus, going up there sometimes, really had been, seemed really super, super dangerous to me. But I don't think it's any different than downtown Cincinnati or anything that you could encounter in Over the Rhine or any place. And so I said, boy, I've got to reach out to this person and see if there's any way I could get her to come and talk to us, because I wasn't even sure I understood the story. And if any of you heard Brian Thomas the other day when Lisa was on there, it was halfway through the interview before he really even understood what the story was. He didn't get it because it's so hard for people to understand what's happening right in front of us. But Lisa agreed to come from Florida. We appreciate it. Welcome to the great Midwest, the beautiful weather of Cincinnati. And we're glad to have you. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off by playing a video and or a little PowerPoint. And then I'll introduce Lisa and we'll get started. Do you want to fast forward through it, or do you want me to? Okay. So we'll give this a try. This is Who is Reagan Tokes? 33 days shy of turning 22 and 3 months shy of graduation from The Ohio State University. Taken too soon. Lisa McCrary-Tokes is president of the Reagan Tokes Memorial Foundation. The foundation was created from a place of love to honor the memory of her and her husband Toby's oldest daughter, who lost her life in February of 2017 due to failures and flaws in our current system in the state of Ohio. This foundation has raised and awarded nearly $200,000 in scholarships to well-deserving students from the Rally for Reagan events it hosts. These events also have self-awareness, self-defense component added to them to teach attendees how to keep themselves safe and feel empowered. This is really a story of empowerment. It is a hope that a program like this can be implemented into schools and on college campuses as part of a regular curriculum to help combat the danger lurking among us. Lisa McCrary-Tokes is also a political activist, and along with her husband, they have successfully challenged and changed a portion of the laws in the state of Ohio that allowed this tragedy to occur. Phase 1 of the Reagan Tokes Act, Senate Bill 201, was signed into law December 21st, and it allows for additional time to be added to sentences for incarcerated offenders who have demonstrated inappropriate conduct and inability to reform under current sentencing. Let's welcome our guest from Florida, Lisa McCrary-Tokes. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
No. Can you hear me better now? Okay. If I need to be louder, just give me a thumbs up. Thank you for having me tonight. Thank you to Dan and the team at Empower You. Thank you to Bill for being my transportation from the airport today. Thank you to Rob Fletcher, who has also partnered with me on the safety self-defense aspect with his program SDI 7 HIT that he will talk to you about later. And thank you for the opportunity to share our story with you tonight. It is a story that I wish that I didn't have to tell. It is a parent's worst nightmare. It is absolutely devastating what has happened to us. And the worst part about it is it was completely preventable. So I'm going to ask for a little grace from you as we go through tonight. There'll probably be times that I'm a little bit emotional, but I will try to keep my composure so that I can give you the facts and the details as best as I possibly can. In the essence of time, I am working off of a PowerPoint, but I possibly will skip some of the things that I have highlighted. And if you have any questions on that later, please don't hesitate to ask. So I'll start from the beginning. I will go to February 8th, 2017. This is the day that mine and my husband Toby's oldest daughter, Reagan Tokes, who was a senior at The Ohio State University, was leaving a shift of work in the short north, a highly populated area where a lot of Ohio State students actually work. And she was abducted, robbed, raped, murdered, and her naked, lifeless body was left at Scioto Grove Metro Park, just outside of Columbus. She had been shot in the head twice. And as I mentioned, the worst part about it, this was preventable. So we'll start with the how. And bear with me as I figure out how to back up 1 second on this. Okay, so the how. How this happened was a previously released violent offender who was wearing a GPS ankle monitor intersected my daughter when she was leaving work and walking to her car. He was wearing an ankle monitor. He had 52 infractions in his incarceration sentence that he had just been recently released from serving. And his prior crime was raping an 8-month pregnant woman in front of her 2-year-old son. And for that, he got a 6-year prison sentence. But he was actually released at 5.5. He should have never been on the streets. He should have never crossed paths with my daughter that night. And the fact that while he was out, he committed 6 other crimes leading up to abducting and murdering my daughter is absolutely appalling, all while wearing an ankle monitor provided by the state of Ohio and being monitored by the post-control release program from the Ohio Department of Corrections. Ankle monitors, we've come to find out, are not monitored in real time. And to that I say, what is the point? It's a program that the state pays millions and millions of taxpayer dollars to fund every year, but yet it does nothing. It was able to tie him to these crimes after the fact, but it was not able to prevent them like it should. It's a reactive program, not a proactive program. In addition, parole officer caseload in the state of Ohio is absolutely ridiculous. There are parole officers that have upwards of 100 cases. And when we're talking about some of the most violent people that are released on the streets and they work a Monday through Friday 9-to-5 shift, you tell me how that makes any sort of logical sense. It doesn't. We didn't know all these details at the time, but we soon came to learn them afterwards. And it is part of the reason that we have decided to act. And ACT is an acronym that also goes along with the Actions Conquer Tragedy for our foundation. I firmly believe that actions matter and you have to step forward and do something when you know something is so blatantly wrong. So I had talked to my daughter that day at about 3:45 when she was getting ready to go into work. It's the last conversation I will have ever had with her. She typically always called her father every night and checked in. And that wasn't a habit that her and I had anymore because at this point she's 21 years old, almost turning 22. At some point, a parent gets to the point that you start and release and you let that child grow a bit and you don't have such a connection like that, but it was a thing between her and my husband. It always happened. And that night when she didn't call, he started to get uneasy. And because he was uneasy, I was starting to get a little uneasy. But again, I'm like, she's a college student. She probably was tired. She went home. Maybe she forgot to charge her phone. But unfortunately, that was not the case. And the details that follow later end up leading to the discovery of all of actually what went on. So by the time we hadn't heard from her from the next morning, her younger sister was a senior in high school. She reached out to roommates for us through social media, and we quickly learned that Reagan had never come home. Her bed was not slept in, her car was not there. This was not characteristic of my daughter. That was not behavior that she ever exhibited. So I immediately got on the phone and started calling the university to find out if she had been in class that day, to which I found out that she had not. I started calling hospitals and seeing if they had anybody matching her description. Maybe she was unconscious. Maybe she had been in a car accident and was hurt. Absolutely nothing. I then decided with my husband that we would call the police and we would report her missing, only to find out, and mind you, we live in Florida at the time. We are from Ohio originally. That's where my husband and I were born and raised, and it's also where we raised both of our girls up until several years ago when we moved to Florida. Reagan was actually born in Fort Wright, Kentucky, and we lived in Cincinnati. So I'm not unfamiliar with the weather, but I have to tell you, when I arrived today, it's a little more than I remember. My Florida blood has thinned out, I think. But back to the story. I could not report Reagan missing because I had not been the last person to see her. So then it starts the grueling task. I know, right? That was my reaction. Starts the grueling task of getting in contact with the restaurant manager from the night before at Bodega and getting him to call and report her as a missing person. And this time frame that goes on is agonizing. And I'm dealing back and forth with the Columbus police, but I'm not getting any information. Mackenzie comes home from school. She has to help me. We're calling in and reporting Reagan's car stolen now because it's missing. And it just becomes this sensation of your mind goes from being worried to you're completely panicked to you are beside yourself. And what we didn't know at the time was she had already been found that morning at Scioto Grove Metro Park, but because she had had no prior record of any sort, they had no idea who she was. And that night, I can remember being in the kitchen of our house, and it was probably about 7:45, and my phone rang. And it was Sergeant Chris White of the Grove City Police on the phone. And I remember him saying to me, "Is your husband with you?" And I'm like, "He is." And then I said, "Grove City." I'm like, "Why are you calling me?" I'm like, "I need to keep my phone open. I'm waiting to hear from the Columbus police." And he's like, "Ma'am, I need you to put me on speakerphone if your husband's right there with us." And then he proceeded to tell me something that a parent should never hear. That the body of a woman matching the description of our daughter had been found naked, shot in the head at Scioto Grove Metro Park. And it was like I was having an out-of-body experience. I kept telling him, "You have to be mistaken. You have to be mistaken. You have the wrong person. This is not real." And unfortunately, it was real, and the nightmare had officially begun. So my brother still lives in Ohio, and somebody needed to go to the morgue and make the identification of the body. And so he drove and offered to do that. And I can remember when he called, I just kept praying all night. It's going to be wrong. He's going to get there. It's not going to be her. And the phone call came in from my brother, and I could tell by the tone of his voice immediately it was what we didn't want to hear. It was her. And I remember asking him, because at this point we had been told that the person that they found had been shot in the head twice. And this is one of those times that I can honestly tell you that faith has played a huge part of how we put one foot in front of the other and we can continue to go on. I remember asking my brother if she had a face. if she still had a face and if he was certain that it was her. And he assured me that it was. And where faith comes into play is I am grateful that we had the opportunity to have our child back, to give her a proper burial and honor her that way. And I am not one of those poor families who never know where their child is, if they're still out there, what happened to them. So as devastating and as tragic as this is, faith still plays a part of it because there are blessings. We were able to bring Reagan home and we were able to properly bury and honor her, and we were able to get the answers, and her perpetrator was caught and is in prison. And this information started to come to us in small bits and pieces. I have to tell you, the Grove City Police Department is an incredible organization, and we are also thankful that we had them as part of the team. Lieutenant Brian Davidson, with Sergeant Chris White, Detective Rick Forney, Officer Doug Fraley, who found her that morning, multiple undercover officers who were part of this entire investigation. There's an incredible additional staff. They worked round the clock. This was personal to them. And it's why I think this story has resonated with so many people as well. My daughters are incredible people, I think. I'm biased as a mother. And Reagan was a beautiful person. She was just as beautiful on the inside as she was on the outside. But there is nothing special about us as people or as a family. We are a tight-knit, loving family. We are connected with our faith. That is a bond that stems from love. And what is faith? Faith is love. But we are just middle-class working people helping our children get an education. And if this could happen to us, it can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. Unfortunately, there is evil lurking amongst us. It's all over. No one is immune to it. And it's part of the reason we have chosen to be very vocal and speak out. That is not our nature either. We are relatively quiet and reserved people. But this story is so devastating, and the amount of failures that go with it are so devastating that the public needs to know, and we need to help raise awareness, and we need to help educate people and help create better safety parameters and protocols. So back to this incredible team. They took it personal because, again, this could have been one of their children. It happened in their backyard. It happened in their community. They worked tirelessly around the clock. And as we were making plans to come home and transport Reagan to the home city that we're from, Maumee, Ohio, we got the phone call that morning that they had a suspect in custody. And they were able to have the suspect in custody because he made a fatal mistake of smoking in Reagan's car, and he left a cigarette butt that had his DNA on it. Now, the worst information that they didn't tell us right at the time, but we came to find out later, is they are actually the same police force that had incarcerated him the years before for raping that other woman. So this really hit home to them as well. So we traveled to Maumee. Faith is the tie that continues to bind. Our home church welcomed us with open arms. But we get home and we actually, instead of just being able to focus on planning a funeral, which no parent should ever have to do for a child, we have to divide and conquer, for lack of a better term. There now is a suspect in custody and there's arraignment hearing in the city of Columbus. So my husband went there and I stayed in Maumee and put the details together of what would follow a few days later. And I will tell you, when I tell you that my daughter was as beautiful on the inside as she was on the outside, and she was a ray of light, and she had a personality that was beaming, and she was kind and loving and inclusive, that was shared with me the day of her funeral, when everybody was coming through the receiving line. And I looked out and there was a young woman standing near some friends of mine. And when she got up to us, I could tell she wanted to tell me something, but she was a little hesitant. And then she said, I was speaking to your friends and they told me I have to tell you this. And she proceeded to tell me a story of when she was in grade school, back in like the 2nd grade, with my daughter Reagan. And she was going through a terrible time. Her family was in turmoil. She was living with extended family members. Her parents were getting divorced. She was having a really difficult time. And the only person who was kind to her and offered to be her friend and invited her to lunch and invited her to play on the playground was my daughter Reagan. And she said that she went through the rest of her life telling people that Reagan Tokes was her friend. And that's what she shared with me that day, which was a beautiful thing considering what we were going through, to hear that. It's what I already knew, but to have it confirmed by somebody who carried that with them their entire life too, it's pretty amazing. And I have to tell you, when it comes to the media were all over this at first too, and that felt incredibly intrusive, and I was very taken aback by it in the beginning. And I have since changed my mindset with it, because it's the media who have also been so incredibly involved to help us share our story and all the incredible failures of the state of Ohio that have come to light since this story first came out. So the months that follow, you know, it's devastating. This happened to Reagan when she was a senior at Ohio State. She was just getting ready to turn 22. She was just a couple months shy of graduating. And it was also our younger daughter, Mackenzie's, senior year in high school. And to have to go back in, again, our community that we now live in, amazing community as well. We live in Parkland, Florida. And I don't know if that name rings a bell to any of you, but Parkland, Florida is also the site of the tragedy at Stoneman Douglas. That occurred almost 1 year to the date of losing Reagan in the community that we now live in, which again is part of the reason that we are so vocal. A different kind of tragedy, a different kind of evil, but an evil that exists and occurred in the community that we live in now as well. But just going back and trying to navigate, it's so difficult and people don't know what to say. And we tried to give them grace, because what do you say to us? I mean, honestly, what do you say? And what I can tell you, for people who have gone through something like this, the adage that they say time heals all wounds and the pain gets easier and whatnot, it does not. It does not. The loss never leaves you. The pain never leaves your heart. What you learn how to do is cope, and you learn how to put one foot in front of the other. And you also learn, when you have the ability to lean into your faith, to ask for the path to help you make a difference. And I share this because it was also an unwritten rule in our household. If any one of us had the ability to impact somebody else's life in a way that would be positive and could make something possibly better, it's just what you did. No questions asked, it's just what you did. And it's part of what we've had to do with this. What happened to Reagan was preventable, and it's devastating, and it can happen to anybody. And I know she would not want us just sitting in our grief and not doing anything. We have had to lean into our faith and ask for the strength and guidance to figure out how to spread the word and to make a difference from this terrible tragedy. And that brings me to another point I've also had to realize. For those, well, Rob is really the only person in the room who knows me, and he can attest to this. I'm sure I have a bit of a controlling personality, and I like to think that I'm in control. Well, this has taught me I'm in control of nothing, but I can influence everything. And I do believe that God gives each one of us special gifts. And I think the gift that he has given me is the ability to find my strength, along with my husband and my daughter Mackenzie and our family, to figure out how we make something better out of a very tragic situation. So We get a couple months down the road and it's coming time for graduation at Ohio State. And President Drake and the board have ruled that Reagan should be awarded a diploma because she earned her degree. She was a psychology major. Again, it kind of speaks volumes about the kind of person she was. She wanted to go out into the world and make life better for people, especially people where their own mind sometimes was their biggest challenge and nemesis. We had to go accept that diploma on her behalf. And you saw that picture probably where President Drake is hugging my husband and my youngest is standing there sobbing alongside of me. It was an honor to receive it. She should have been the one receiving it. She earned it. She was so proud to be a Buckeye. She wanted to be a Buckeye ever since she was a little girl. And my husband took her to her first Ohio State game when she was about, I think in the first or second grade. That was it. That was where she was going to school, no questions asked. She basically announced to the university that she was coming versus waiting for them to officially accept her. That was kind of Reagan's personality too. But at the same time, my brother had also met with Jay Casey at the Ohio State University, and you saw that picture of the beautiful magnolia tree and that plaque that they put on the edges of Mirror Lake that was being redone. Reagan loved that campus so much, and there is a beautiful picture that's floating around out there, and she is standing on Mirror Lake on the ice with her arms spread out wide with this gigantic grin on her face. Something you're not supposed to do, but of course she did it. And so how fitting that this tree is there in her honor and memory. And it's a magnolia tree because they're known for their longevity and their beauty and their connection, their long-term connection to the heart. And that is where Reagan is always in our heart. She's always with us. And at that same time, we had already reached out to Republican Congressman Stephen Stivers, and talked to him about what we were learning through the media. Bennett Haberly with the NBC station in Columbus actually has been really great at reporting on all the details that started to emerge. And so we're finding out all these things that happened that allowed this to occur. And we were beside ourselves and we said something has to be done to change the laws. And he connected us with Republican Senator Kevin Bacon and Republican Jim Hughes. And that started the progression for what would eventually become the Reagan Tokes Act. So in addition to reaching out, because we knew we had to change legislation, we of course are also reaching out to the Ohio Department of Corrections, Gary Moore, the Adult Parole Authority, Mayor Ginther, all of these people. We've never heard word one from any of them in the state of Ohio. The outreach constantly came from us. And the only person to return my call initially was Gary Moore. And obviously, the prison system let this person out. It's even more disturbing is they let him out early. Now, you tell me where it's logical that somebody who has committed a violent offense should be allowed to have a plea deal, number one, and number two, have his sentence take into consideration the amount of time that he had already served for considering that plea deal, which is how he got out in 5.5 years, not 6. So he never should have been out. He never should have crossed paths with my daughter. And while he was incarcerated, 52 infractions, some of them violent. But because the law in the state of Ohio, which was called the Truth in Sentencing Act at the time, did not have any parameters for indefinite sentencing, the date on the calendar rolls around, regardless of what his conduct is, the door's open and away he goes. Now, what do you think violent criminals incarcerated think when they know that they continue to be bad and they are demonstrating zero reform, but there's no consequences? Of course, they think, you know what, it's a free-for-all. There's no consequences. And that's exactly what this was in this particular evil person's overall scenario. He's released wearing an ankle monitor. Now, again, one would think that an ankle monitor is a preventative measure. And when you're outside of zone, when you have tampered with it, when you have been missing for a particular period of time because you have tampered with it, all these things are post-control release violations. He has documented numerous times, nothing happens. And they're not monitored in real time. And let's say, for example, that you have a holiday weekend and a parole officer stops working on Friday, you have a holiday on Monday, something happens over the weekend, he's outside of inclusionary zone, it might be Tuesday or Wednesday before anybody's the wiser, and it's too late. Just like it was in my daughter's situation, too late. Versus a database exists, you just need to give access to the police and you need to monitor it in real time. And you have to pay to have somebody sitting there. So I don't know, gee, which is the lesser of the two evils? We pay for a program that does absolutely nothing, and then we have all these crimes after the fact, or we put a little money towards putting it in real time and giving access, and it now becomes a preventable situation. And how about, here's a novel concept, how about we alert local areas where violent criminals are being released into the population so that they're aware? Very easy to connect the dots. You have a string of violent crimes that start happening in the Short North District, in that overall area. Maybe had the local authorities been alerted that this particular person was released and he had violent, then maybe he would have been apprehended prior to crossing paths with my daughter. This leads me to the next point. So there is a woman, Democratic Representative Kristen Boggs, who I had seen had been speaking out about our case because it happened in the jurisdiction that she oversees. And when I talk about control, we're a couple months into this now. It's now moved into July timeframe, and it's not moving fast enough for me. So I'm like, okay, who else do I pull into the fold? Who else comes in as part of the team? And it was also very important to me, especially given the state of what it's like in our country, to have bipartisan support of this bill. So on board came Democrat Senator Sean O'Brien and Democrat House of Representatives Kristen Boggs. And by the time September rolls around, we have officially compiled what will be introduced and known as the Reagan Tokes Act. And at the time, it was Senate Bill 201 and 202 and House Bill 365. The House wrote it so that all four components of the bill were in one, and the Senate split it up, anticipating that we might have a budgetary issue on dealing with the ankle monitor program. So the indefinite sentencing portion comes first and the ankle monitor portion comes second. So we go to Ohio. My husband and I fly to Ohio in September of 2017 to officially introduce this bill with the legislative team. And it's designed to overturn the truth in sentencing, which does not allow for additional time for incarceration should your conduct not be appropriate. And it overhauls the ankle monitor program and the parole officer caseload. We are walking through the rotunda at the State House. And mind you, again, nothing from the state of Ohio aside from the people that we've reached out to. And we pass Governor Kasich and he was the governor at the time. We pass him in the rotunda. And you know how when you cross paths with somebody and you make the recognition that you know you recognize him? He and I lock eyes. And for a split second, I kind of did one of these. And I thought for sure he would stop. I mean, we've been in the media at this point. We have gone through a devastating situation, but yet here we are attempting to do something about it and make Ohio a safer, better place. Instead, he turns, looks down, turns and talks to the person that he was with, and they keep on walking. To this day, I have yet to have any contact from him. Very disappointing. And at the same time that we introduced this legislation, the idea comes to us that we also need to do something more. Fighting legislation isn't enough. Our daughter was an incredible, giving, gifted, kind person. She was a wonderful student. She was so grateful for her education. And so we decided to start a foundation to award scholarships to well-deserving students, knowing that, you know, providing for an education is a challenge. And if we could help students fulfill their dreams in her legacy and honor, it's something we wanted to do. So the Reagan Tokes Memorial Foundation was formed. And we had our first event in March of 2018. And that event is called Rally for Reagan. And I don't know if you happen to notice on the slideshow that you were looking at, there was a picture of Reagan jumping and she had a tennis racket in her hand. She was a 4-year varsity tennis player. And so the term rally obviously is a term for tennis, but rally is also an inclusive term of bringing people together and uniting them. And in our case, it's for what we feel is a good cause. So we were just originally going to have a tennis tournament event back in Maumee where she played tennis, and the club that she played at, and her high school coach was going to help host it. And I had this incredible team of friends that said to me, why is that all we're doing? We need to do more. So we had an evening gala that had a silent auction, and we incorporated, one of the very important things to us was also to incorporate a safety, self-defense, self-awareness component to the weekend, because we needed to spread the word. If this could happen to Reagan, it could happen to anybody. And just to let you know too, if anybody were wondering in your head, she was raised from a very young age. My background was in retail initially. So I talked to my kids, pay attention, be aware, don't be on your phone. I mean, we talked when they were little about how if somebody grabs you at a bus stop, how to wriggle out of your coat and run the other direction and get away. Unfortunately, in today's society, there is evil everywhere, like we talked about. And we have to be extra careful and extra vigilant, and we have to have programs that continually reinforce and teach and talk about, you know, in Parkland, there was a mass shooter. Can you ever imagine having to talk to your child about how to get away from a mass shooter? It's important. And we decided it's a very important component that has to be part of the programs that we have. And that is how the connection between Rob and I came to be, because he had seen on the news what we were doing in Maumee, and he contacted me. He's from the Columbus area, and said, we need to do this. I want to join your team. I want to help with this. He has a great program he'll share with you in a little bit. And I ended up going to Columbus later that year, meeting with Rob. We had a series of a couple events that we did to spread safety, self-defense, and awareness in the city of Columbus. And through that meeting came another chance meeting with another friend of ours, Mike Roderick. He was not my friend at the time, he was Rob's. And he came and met us at the Renaissance Hotel, and he said to me, why are we not having a Rally for Reagan event in Columbus too? I said, well, I'm not from here. I don't have people here. I don't have a team like I have back in Maumee. And lo and behold, he introduces me to Mindy Dreyer, who has a partner, Michaela. They have a radio show. They were the MCs of the event, and they said, we're your new team in Columbus. We're going to have a rally event in Columbus, Ohio also, which was pretty incredible. And this upcoming year, we are going to be on our 3rd Rally for Reagan in Maumee, and it'll be our 2nd Rally for Reagan in Columbus, Ohio. Now, it's interesting that all this still came to be and came to fruition, because after the first Rally for Reagan in Maumee, March of 2018, myself, my husband, and our younger daughter, Mackenzie, had to immediately leave and go to Columbus and sit through a murder trial. Literally the same week that we had just had all this where we're doing good, then we have to deal with that. And the reason I bring it up is because of the timetable. It is more than 1 year since we lost Reagan. And this is just now going to trial. It's ridiculous how long all this takes. And unfortunately, so much of what is in place isn't for the innocent. It isn't for the victims. It's all about these loopholes and this and that and all this correctness that has to happen for these violent offenders. And I'm sorry, when you have assaulted somebody in a violent way, as far as I'm concerned, you don't have the same rights as anybody sitting in this audience who has never put hands on another individual. You don't have the same rights. You lost your rights. And so we don't have to give you the same courtesies and scenarios, so to speak. But unfortunately, the system does not operate that way. We did have success, however, at the end of that year. Senate Bill 201, the first phase of the Reagan Tokes Act, got signed into law. It now addresses indefinite sentencing. It overturned the truth in sentencing law, and now judges can add up to 50% of additional incarceration time for those who fail to appropriately reform while incarcerated. And they are not allowed to be back out on the streets wreaking havoc and attacking the innocent. Now, the dates of this are pretty significant too. December 13th, it was passed. December 21st, it was signed into law. I have a thing with numbers. It's a connection that I hang on to with my daughter, Reagan. She sort of believed in the same thing. I think there's significance to it. It's sort of signs that I've been given along the way that I'm on the right path and keep doing the right thing. The 13th is when the bill passed. She was born on a 13. I was born on a 13. It's a number we share in common. Signed into law by Governor Kasich on the 21st. We lost Reagan when she was 21. So these are little things that I just like to hang on to. As all this continues to go on, there is also the issue of the Metro Park at Scioto Grove. And for me, that was for all of us in our family, a devastating scenario that this would happen to Reagan and she would be left in a Metro Park. My husband, Toby, and I took our girls to the Metro Parks in the Maumee area their entire childhood. We have some incredible memories from that. And we went to that Metro Park one time and I said, I've been here once, I will never come back. And my mentality surrounding a Metro Park is now tainted. It's dark, it's ugly, it's evil. There was a beautiful makeshift memorial that was done at the street and there were very kind people, but again, it was dangerous. It was right by the edge of the road. It had to be removed. And I got to thinking about it, as I have with a lot of this stuff, and I thought, you know what? No, evil does not get to take that from us too. It doesn't get to take those beautiful memories. It does not get to take the loved nature and the outdoors and these beautiful green spaces that everybody can go and enjoy. And so when I was in town one time in Columbus, speaking about legislation or something, I met with Larry Peck of the Metro Park system. And I can remember that first meeting with him. I was telling him all kinds of things. I mean, you pull in and I can't explain to you the sensation that you have. It's this dark, oppressive, foreboding. It feels like you can't breathe. I want to run screaming. I want to start bawling. I'm like, it can't be that way. And imagine all the people in that community probably thought the same thing about this park now. I'm like, we have to change it. So I start telling him all these things about Reagan. I wear this Tiffany blue ribbon because Tiffany blue was one of her favorite colors. Her name is Reagan Delaney. She's Irish. She was very proud of that name and her heritage. The Celtic symbol for love is part of our foundation emblem, and it's in Tiffany blue. I am telling you, birds, bees, water, sunshine. She's a Pisces, so the element of water, sitting facing the sun, so that incredible ray of light that she was when she walked into a room is the sensation that I wanted to have when I went to this park, not that ugly, dark energy. And I remember he literally started writing on his hand because he ran out of room of all the things that I was throwing at him like 900 miles an hour. And initially we had talked, it was maybe going to be a tree in a little reflective place. Well, he puts Chris Del Grasso on the task of creating this garden space, and they ended up sending me 3 renderings to choose from. And I was so overwhelmed when I opened these because they were incredible. And one of the renderings, which is what was chosen, was shown in the slideshow that you first saw. And I don't know if you happen to notice, but it looks like an angel with outspread wings. That was the one that I ended up choosing. They didn't tell me, but that was their favorite also. And Chris later told me a story. His mother is losing her eyesight. And when he got commissioned to design this project, he took it so personal. And he was so thorough with everything that Larry had shared with him and tried to incorporate all the elements and make it all the things beautiful like Reagan. And for a split time frame, when he got all the renderings done, his mother had the ability to see, and he was able to share them with her, and she chose the same rendering that I did as her favorite. And I thought that was pretty impactful and pretty incredible. And again, another one of those signs. So this park project started in the fall of 2018, and we had the official dedication and completion of it in June of 2019. And it's an incredible space, and it's for anybody. So much of what we tried to do with any of this is about everybody else as well. We didn't want anybody else to feel dark and terrible about this space. We wanted people who had maybe experienced terrible things in their life to have a beautiful spot to go and sit and reflect and connect and feel peace and calm with nature. And we wanted to take away all the ugly, negative energy, because Reagan's spirit and her light is still here in this world, and she's still impacting people in a beautiful way. And this evil person does not get to win and does not get to take any of these things. And if we can make it a sacred space for others, as well as having it now be a place of beauty that we can hold in our hearts, then that's what we wanted to do. And it's, I think, what we accomplished. So where are we currently with legislation? And I'm going to check myself on time too. Okay, I think I'm staying kind of on track. We had the passing of the first phase. Phase 2 is still ongoing. We lost Senator Bacon and we lost Republican Representative Hughes because they had termed out within their legislative term. So we had to have 2 new team members join us. And so Republican Senator Nathan Manning came on board, which was a great addition because he had been supportive of our bill and part of one of the committees that had worked with us in the House of Representatives, and he has now been elected into the Senate. And we also have Republican House of Representatives Rick Carfagna, who has joined the team. And I can't tell you how many countless trips we have made back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to Columbus, Ohio, to speak in proponent testimony to push this over the finish line, because part 1 without part 2 does not close the circle of failure. You can keep people in prison longer if they fail to reform, but eventually, unless they got a life sentence in prison, eventually they potentially are going to get out. And if you let them out and you don't have appropriate guardrails, there's no guarantees. So you better make sure that you're monitoring in real time, and there's actually a consequence when you have a violation. The 2 need to be together to close the circle of failure. In addition, you also need to give parole officers the ability to do their jobs. This was preventable, and if we'd stopped stalling, the countless victims before Reagan, the countless victims after her, and the ones that will still occur, enough. When is enough enough? And the fact that it all takes such a ridiculously lengthy amount of time is absolutely ludicrous. And all the while, innocent people are losing their lives over it. So we continue to fight to be the voice for all victims, to protect the innocent and punish the perpetrators. When I was in Ohio this past June, I had the privilege of meeting with some parole officers. They are in favor of this bill. Their hands are tied. They can't do their jobs effectively. They know they're failing. They said they remember a system that worked at one point in time, and they now live in a system that is failing. It's devastating to them, but they can't speak out. They are told they will get fired. They will be suspended. They'll have all these different things. First off, the ability to speak out in favor of something That is their right under the Constitution. But to be told that they will lose their jobs, some of them can't afford that. They're the providers in their home and whatnot. So the union has actually stepped up and spoke on their behalf in favor of our bill. There has been a recent executive order by now Governor DeWine, who we've never heard from either, I'll have you know. He also happened to be the Attorney General at the time that this happened, so he's very well aware of our case. There was an executive order that came out a couple weeks ago. I don't know if any of you saw this. And he referred to a case that happened in August. And I am devastated for this family, and my heart and my prayers go out to them. They had a tragedy similar to ours. Somebody was released. He's on an ankle monitor, and he went on to offend again. This time he actually attacked family members of his own. But Governor DeWine took that and he put a task force together to study post-release control failures, the ankle monitor program that's failing, the reentry program that's failing, and to investigate the truth in sentencing law. Now, do you remember what I said back in December 21st, 2018? The Reagan Tokes Act, Senate Bill 201, that has been signed into law, overturned the truth in sentencing. What are we wasting taxpayer dollar and money for on something that no longer exists? And what do we need an additional task force when there is a bill that already addresses all of the deficits that we've just talked about? There has been countless hours of investigation and data research, hours and hours and hours and hours by our family and a legislative team. It's all already there. It's in a bill that exists. It's called Phase 2 of the Reagan Tokes Act. It's now known as House Bill 215 or Senate Bill 133. It's already on the floor. All you have to do is pass it and sign it. And guess what? The circle of failure closes. But no, let's be smart and let's create an additional ridiculous amount of red tape. Let's stall. Let's do nothing. And let's spend more taxpayer money on something that is unnecessary, all the while innocent people continue to die. And it's not just limited to the state of Ohio. This is a problem that is going on all over this country. It is our effort to tackle Ohio first because it's where our tragedy occurred, and then we will continue on and help in other states because there is a situation where there is a missing student right now in Georgia. And they believe it's a very similar situation. There was just one a month ago, very similar situation to ours. When is enough? Enough. And how do you put a price tag on innocent human life when you are looking at it from a budgetary standpoint? You know, they've tried to come out from the state of Ohio through ODRC and whatnot and say that there is this incredible expense to create a database. No, there's not. There's a database that already exists. All you have to do is man it and take it away from a third-party company and give it to the appropriate authorities who actually can do something about the violations. That's all that has to occur. So like I said, the time is now to close the circle of failure. The time is now to enact a program that's effective for ankle monitors and to reduce parole officer caseload. So what have we accomplished in addition to the legislation? Well, so far, to this point, our foundation has awarded nearly $200,000 of scholarships to well-deserving students. We have had countless of safety self-defense programs that we've exposed people to tips on how to be more aware and how to potentially protect yourself if you find yourself in a dangerous situation. We know there are no guarantees, and when a weapon is involved, you can't be certain what the outcome will be, whether somebody has the ability to escape or not. But if we can help educate you on how to potentially prevent becoming a victim, then it's certainly something that we feel very strongly about. We have 2 events coming up for 2020. The first one will be in Columbus, Ohio. As I mentioned, my friends Rob and Mike are helping with that. If you're interested in learning anything more about what we're doing, you can go to our foundation webpage, therdtmf.com, or you can go to either one of the BidPal sites. This has a direct link of everything that is happening in that particular city. We also have another one coming up in our hometown of Maumee in March of this coming year as well. And, you know, I have to tell you, getting back to even Mackenzie and talking about her in her senior year, I have to tell you, this is another time that I can say, even though we've had this devastating tragedy, we are still truly blessed as well. She had to go back from this and figure out how to finish senior year and graduate and have the courage and strength to still go on to college like she planned and pursue her dreams. And there was that one picture in the slideshow of obviously her, Toby and I standing there doing the OHIO and the eye is missing. But to the right side of that, there is also one where the three of us are standing and she was holding something. She was chosen as the kid of character in Parkland, where we lived her senior year, because she went back and she created a safety self-defense program that was hosted at her high school for anybody that wanted to attend her graduating senior year. And she has continued to stand by us for this fight and to be supportive of doing things in this world that impact and improve the life of others in honor of her sister's memory and legacy. And we still hold in our hearts Reagan every day. We miss her every day. There is not a day that goes by that we don't think about her countless times or wish she was with us, or holidays or any of those things. Those are all devastating and difficult. But we put ourselves out there, and we've been very public with this because we know we have to do something to change. And I refuse to let evil be the defining factor of my daughter's legacy. I will not be overcome by evil, but I will overcome evil with good. That is how Reagan was raised. It is the foundation of our family as part of our faith. And it is what we are choosing to do through our actions to honor her legacy and memory. Thank you so much for having me speak to you this evening and for listening so intently while I shared our story. And feel free to reach out to your local legislative body if you are so inclined, to ask them to get behind pushing this second phase of legislation through before any more innocent lives are lost. It is our hope that we can still get it signed into law before the year is over. It will make a huge, incredible difference at closing the circle of failure.
Thank you.
And how about that? My 45-minute timer just stopped.
Would you introduce Rob?
Absolutely. So now I'm going to introduce Rob Fletcher. He is the creator of the program SDI 7-HIT. I will let him go into a little bit more detail, but bottom line, it is a self-awareness, safety, self-defense program, and it combines a workout aspect in addition to the key components of what you should or shouldn't do to prevent becoming a victim. And part of the reason it resonated so much with me is it plays on repetition. I don't know if any of you have gone to a program before, but if you go to it once is not enough and you forget. And when somebody is in a tense situation, panic and fear sets in and the tendency is to freeze. But if you repetitively do something over and over, hopefully muscle memory kicks in and you act and react. And that is what Rob is going to go into much greater detail. He's far more the expert on it than I am. So I will stop talking and turn it over to Rob.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As Lisa mentioned, thank you, Empower You, Dan, for having us here to share this very important information. And I always say, why do we do this? Because it is necessary, it matters. Reagan mattered, you matter. So a big part of this is what we can do to prevent it from happening and what we can do should it happen. So as Lisa mentioned, my program is SDI 7, Safety and Self-Defense Program, starting off with a bang. And then they have the complemented with a workout, self-defense in 7 minutes. So anyone can do the workout. So there's self-defense in 7 minutes and then self-defense in 7 minutes, high intensity interval training. So your 1 minute on a fighting skill, self-defense technique, or combative tactics movement means weapon disarmament. Then you're 1 minute on an exercise. The most important thing in any self-defense situation is to avoid the freeze zone, which I'm going to go into. So the first thing is, let me see here. Okay. So crime, violence, active shooters, rape, sexual assault, abduction, these things will never go away. They're always going to be there, always going to exist. So what we have to do when we leave here today is we have to be vigilant. And one thing I want to mention before I forget is how important this woman is right here. I've been teaching martial arts for a long time. One of the things that I've always tried to instill, whether it's a 5-year-old, we call them tiny tigers, or an older person, to always stay in the fight, to be a fighter, to choose to be a fighter. And as we get older and as we face adversity and challenge, we have to dig down deep sometimes, and we have to be a fighter. Not helpless, not hopeless, but to be a fighter. Lisa Tokes defines fighter. And when I reached out to her and I offered my services to whatever capacity, I committed to her 110% to the end. This is what I've done for 30 years. Now I'm in overdrive. But I remember word for word what this woman said under those conditions and circumstances coming out of that courtroom. And when the media addressed her about moving forward and what her plans were, fighting the flaws in the system, and then also moving forward with the self-defense and safety component, word for word, I refuse to let that one night of evil define my daughter's life. This is what we must do. This is what Reagan would want us to do. Evil will not win. Good will prevail. Actions conquer tragedy. That's a fighter. And so we are here today because she is persistent, consistent, relentless. If I was in a UFC title fight, I would not want to go into the ring with this woman. And that's what she is. So that's what we want you to stay in the fight through adversity, through challenge, if ever in a situation. So the program is SDI 7, Safety and Self-Defense. The purpose is to educate, empower, providing you the knowledge and information and resources to prevent something from happening, and then what to do should it happen. As I said, crime, violence, active shooters, rape, sexual assault, and abduction, these things will never go away. If you listen and apply what I'm going to say and share with you in the next few minutes, what do we have there, 20, 30 minutes? 20 minutes, I promise you, you will dramatically improve your chances, one, of never being a victim, and then getting out of that freeze zone, what I call the red zone, where you're overcome with fear and panic and you don't know what to do. Why? Because it's necessary and it matters. You matter. As I said, it's never going to go away. We must apply daily practice and habits and behaviors of safety and prevention. Every second counts. This is very important. Refuse to be a perfect victim. I'm going to explain that in a second. Avoid complacency. And the fact is, we're all going to get caught up. We all have children, grandchildren, and I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have this conversation. What would you do? Like, what would you do personally? And then asking your grandchildren and your kids, what would you do if you were grabbed? As Lisa mentioned, she said it over and over again. But the thing is, we have to reinforce it because ourselves, myself included, you'll get complacent. So we want to make those times less frequent. So avoid complacency, practicing daily habits and behaviors of safety, prevention, and awareness, making good, solid choices, trust your instincts. So the moment you leave your house, locking your doors, locking your windows, going shopping in daylight, traveling in groups and in well-populated, not isolated areas, making good choices, not being complacent, not to instill a paranoid fear, but a healthy awareness. Just making it a practice. And I mean, I hope you sincerely let this reinforce and sink in. So when you leave here, you think about it. Not to be paranoid with fear, but a healthy awareness. Situational awareness, being an active participant in society. I'll talk about this too. Paying attention to your surroundings. Crime looks for an opportunity. Take away the opportunity, you take away the crime. So what do I mean by that? There's a predator profiles you. They look for signs of weakness and vulnerability. They will attack at those moments. So when you're walking down the street and you're being observed by a predator, they're looking for their moment of opportunity. Are you dialed into a cell phone? Are you paying attention? Especially with our kids today. And we're all going to be in it. We're all going to be in it. But you have to make sure that you're paying attention to your surroundings. When I say your surroundings, it's the environment. It's what's happening using your eyes, your ears, and your nose. Listen, watch, and observe. Look at people. Look at their body. Look at their body language and behaviors. We're going to talk about this a little later. What happens in any attack situation, an act of crime, violence, active shooter especially, you go into what we call denial. You freeze. Is this really happening? It seems surreal, especially active shooters. So this is very important to think about. It's mental, emotional, and physical preparedness should it ever happen. So you think about it now, what you would do. So denial, is this really happening? Oh my God, what are you going to do to me? Then there's a deliberation process where you're thinking about the action that you're going to take. What am I going to do? Now this is time. The clock is ticking. This is where I said earlier, every second matters. Every second matters. Then you go into decisive moment, what action you will take. Okay, so taking action means going from 0 to 160 miles an hour to eliminate that denial phase, and then going into what I will explain later, which is called the green zone. Green, you go, you take action. What is your most powerful weapon of self-defense? It is your mind. Your mind will direct and dictate what you do every day. This is what you don't hear about too often in self-defense classes. Your mind. When you leave your house, your mind will prevent a potential attack, and your mind can potentially get you to survive one. So it's your mindset. What do I mean by that? If you freeze, you're helpless and hopeless. Get that out of your mind. You have to be a fighter. Should it come down to a situation, you have to understand that you're willing to do what it takes. Now, what would you do to escape a violent attack or threat? What would you do for your children? I have a daughter, 19 years old. I know if my daughter's life was threatened, if there was a train, I would take on the train. You have to give yourself mental and emotional ammunition as to the why you will do whatever is necessary to escape a threat or attack. So awareness, again, using your eyes, nose, and ears, observation, using human behavior, surroundings, and environment. Know what to do, how you would react, mental and emotional preparedness, denial, deliberation process, decisive action. In an active shooter response, like an example is right here. Okay, we have no way out, we're in a confined space. Now I'm going to give you a perfect example. If this were to happen, I'm going to take you from helpless, hopeless to fighter right now. We have an active shooter in the building. There's no way out. He's coming this way. So now, right away, we have to get it together. We have to think like a team. Some will freeze. We have to get the people, and it's okay because there's no right answer. There's no correct way to determine or dictate what you're going to do until it actually happens. So we're going to take those people that are frozen or want to run. We're going to put you away. This is called the fatal funnel. That doorway right there, if he's coming this way, we want to stay out of the line of fire because what does an active shooter do? They come in a blaze of hailing bullets. They just want to kill as many people as possible. So I'm going to show you what happens. We have about 20 people in this room. There's one active shooter. Will someone get hurt? Most likely. But you know what? I'm going down fighting, and it doesn't mean you have to, but if you want to go into the corner, I want you to go in the corner. But I need 2 or 3 people to come alongside me. So here's our fatal funnel, right? We're not going to stay right here because that's where he's coming through. So one person is here, one person is in here. In an active shooter scenario, the first thing you do is you want to get control of the weapon. So what's going to come through that doorway first? The gun. Okay, here's the doorway, right? I'm coming through. We have 2 fighters out of 20. So say 2 were willing to do to fight. Now what happens? They grab the gun. One, you're going to grab the gun. The other, you're going right for the eyes. You're going to grab the head. You're going to get control of the head. You're going to choke. Once that one person has control of the gun, now hopefully the other group will say, they got control, they got control. They jump in. Now we went from helpless, hopeless to fighter. We have a chance. We have a group. But you have to think like that. Pre-9/11, what happened at 9/11? They froze. People froze, except the few. They fought, right? So now you have to go what I call green. There's 4 mindset zones: red, yellow, gray, and green. So these are the colors I want you to associate should something ever happen. Red, you're paralyzed by fear. You freeze. You don't want to be there. Yellow, you're overcome with fear, panic. You don't know what action to take. Why? Because you did not think about it before. You did not know what you would do. You don't have enough mental and emotional ammunition to take action. Gray zone's where you want to be. What do I need to do? Look around quickly. Okay, if this is a confrontation, you know it's a threat. Do you have something to grab? Can you strike with? What action can I take? Can I quickly run? But you want to go from gray to green. Green is go, 0 to 160 miles an hour. So if something were to happen, you're not going to be red. You're not going to be yellow. It's gray, assess. Can I escape? Can I run? Can I get away? Can I hit? What can I do to escape, to take action? Not helpless, not hopeless, fighter. And what do? You always stay in the fight. You never give up. This applies to any adversity. This applies to any challenge. This applies to whether you're a kid on a field, in the classroom, in the ring. I always said to my entire life, no matter what you do, you never give up. You never give in. You stay in the fight. Give yourself enough ammunition now, not helpless, no matter what you do. And I mean, when you leave here, it's present throughout your body language. When you're walking down the street, you're showing another person, because remember, you're telling a story to other people. You're telling a story whether you're vulnerable. If you're walking down the street making strong presence and eye contact, or with a group, that predator is going to overlook you. They want the person who looks most vulnerable, least resistant. What is an attack, verbal or physical? Verbal attacks can get pretty scary, but if you can just leave that confrontation and escape, that's great. But if it should escalate from there, then you have to decide what you're going to do if it turns to a physical confrontation. In a physical confrontation, I'm going to talk about the vulnerable target areas that we all can strike to, where bigger, stronger, faster intimidation does not apply if you strike these areas. What should you do if attacked? First, what does the attacker want? Money, wallet, jewelry. Those things are replaceable. You are not. You hand that over. The attacker says, your car. That is a no-fly zone. You never go to the second location. I work with the law enforcement. Lisa Tokes will confirm. Don't get in the car. That's where you got to go green. You have to go green. And I mean, go green. Whatever it takes, go to have that trigger, that anchor, where you turn the switch on, where it's not, what are you going to do to me? It's what I'm going to do to you. An example is, I brought a few of these things here. Bigger, stronger, faster, intimidation. Yeah, we get older, we age, we feel vulnerable. But you know what? And these things don't look pretty. But you know what? Pretty don't matter to me. If someone's threatening me or my kid, this is a little key ring right here. I'm going to show you how to use this, and anyone can use it. This is pepper spray. Just give me a time check, Dan, so I know where I'm on point. But these things, I want you to know, these things that you can carry, pepper spray or pepper gel, you can carry this with you. If you're in an isolated area, you feel like it's questionable, very easy to activate. Carry it like this. Your actuator is ready to go. Now, this does no good if it's buried on the bottom of a purse. It's no good if it's in your pocket. Now, what you do, and I ask so many people, lately, I haven't seen you in a little while, Lisa, but I've been doing seminars. How many girls have this that don't even know? Like, have you ever used it? No. How do you spray it? I never. So I'm going to show you right now. Little actuator, you release it, right? It's ready to go. Now, you're ready. If you're walking to that area, this is the motion. First, hand is up. This is concealed. Whatever weapon you have, it's always concealed. Get back, get back. Should you feel you're under attack, then you have to go green. It's straight up, eye to eye, and then an S. Involuntary eye closure, difficulty breathing, immediate psychological symptoms of panic, fear, and anxiety. 10 feet. 10 feet. Now, spray and gel. Spray, you have a blowback effect. So if you have a wind and you spray, it can come back and hit you. Gel streams. So there's a spray and a gel. But this is excellent source of self-protection where bigger, stronger, faster is not going to defeat this. This is a Fort's key ring. Very simple strikes. You see those two little spokes there? Again, this is like this. It's concealed. There's just 5 basic, well, actually 3. It's punch, and what are the vulnerable target areas? The eyes and the nose, but you keep punching that area. Eyes, punch, and then there's little jabs. Eye, eye. And what's the objective? To escape. Once you strike to the eye and you get this, there's another counter to that, but I'll go over with that in a few minutes. That's where you're going to all do the self-defense in 7 minutes workout when you go home. So this is the forked steel baton. This is the pepper spray. A couple other things, like I said, what we could do to prevent something from happening, a doorstop alarm, put this under the door. It's great for college, especially college girls, dorms, apartments, hotels. The door is cracked open. It's going to activate a 120 decibel sound alarm. We have the sound alarm key ring where you pull that out, and that also sounds 120 decibel sound alarm. So all these things are things that we could do to prevent. But should it happen, we also want to know what we can use if it happens. So the pepper spray and the forked steel baton. As I said earlier, the mindset zone is very important. Go green, not red, not yellow. You gray, you assess what you need to do, and then you go green. We spoke about this earlier. I'll just repeat it. Active shooter scenario, typically what happens in any act of crime, violence, or active shooter, denial, deliberation process, and then decisive moment. So we want to make sure that we take that denial phase, we eliminate that, we go to decisive moment as fast as possible. If you fight back, again, an active shooter or crime, getting closer. Okay, an active shooter, we want to redirect line of fire, get control of the weapon, and then strike, group attack, and then disarm. I'll just breeze through these things. Social media. I don't know, our grandkids especially, you know, you have to monitor what's going on social media. Most importantly, hear something, see something, say something, do something. As I said, predators and criminals profile, make sure where you are and how you carry yourself. Remember, they're observing you, they're watching your habits and behaviors. Okay, just real quick, the workout. Just give me 2 minutes. Okay, this is what you can do at home because why? Because what I always say, stay fit, stay strong, stay safe, always stay in the fight. So we're gonna do something right now. Everybody stand up. We're gonna close a little workout. I'm gonna give you 2 minutes of the 7-minute workout. Put your hands up like this. This is the neutral zone. Remember your vulnerable target areas in any attack. Bigger, stronger, faster does not apply if you take out the eye. So the eyes, the nose, and the groin, these are your strikes from here. This is a neutral stance. We'll do 4 palm strikes. When I count 1, you're gonna do 4 fast palm strikes, extend all the way out and imagine hitting the nose. We're gonna do it 10 times. So when I count 1, you're gonna do 4 fast palm strikes to the nose. Ready? 1, 2, faster and harder. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, now we hit them high, now we're going low. So what happens? We went to the pot, we went to the nose. Now we're gonna just pick our right or left knee up. Just make sure you don't kick the chair. Now we're going to the groin. So you went high. Why do you think they don't allow kicking to the groin in fights or gouging eyes? Because it does something, right? You injure. So now I want you to just pick your knee up. When I count 1, it's going to be 1 hard knee strike. You're going right to the groin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, now get down in front of your chair. Now this would be 2 minutes. So when you go home tonight, that's what I want you to do, or later. Stand up. So this is your combination. 1, 2 palm strike, knee kick. So 2 palm strikes, you're gonna do this, you're gonna time yourself. This is what you're doing for 1 minute. 2 palms and a knee. So do that on 1 count. You're gonna do 1, 2, 3. We're gonna do it 5 times. 1, 2 palms and a knee. 2, 3, 4, 5. And the most important thing is to smile as you're bashing his nose in. Okay, now sit in front of the chair, sit down, and now stand up. Now sit down, stand up. Keep going. You're gonna do this for 1 minute. Keep going. Now, if you can't hit the chair, that's okay. Go down 3/4. Go. We'll keep it down. We'll cut it down to 30 seconds. Go ahead.
How about breathing?
That's right. Well, you don't want to hold your breath. Don't turn purple. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Okay, good. Okay, sit down. Okay, so 7, do me a favor, please. This is your foundation. This is your foundation. Squats are very important. I wish I had more time. I love talking to you. Thank you very much for having me. Remember, vulnerable target areas, eyes, nose, groin, exercise, stay fit, stay strong, stay safe, always stay in a fight. The ultimate fighter. Thank you.
I definitely want to see if we've got a couple quick questions for either Rob or Lisa. I've just got a quick one, Lisa. On the ankle monitoring thing, aren't they charging those people X dollars a day to wear those things?
Evidently, am I on? Evidently, there is some program like that, but again, if they don't have employment or they don't have, I mean, what's the likelihood that, and how is that a feasible scenario either, too?
Yeah, I thought they had to pay, the criminal had to pay to get the monitor put on or they wouldn't let him out. And I would just think that'd be revenue they could use to real-time monitor. Who's got questions for either Lisa or Rob? Anybody have any questions? Yes, right here.
I'm Georgianne.
Hi, Georgia.
I just want to know, how powerful do you think it is for a person, a criminal who's going to be let out on probation or parole or whatever it is that you're going to call it, to ask for people to write letters to support keeping him in prison? How powerful is that if there are no laws to protect anybody when they get out?
So, you know, obviously with the law as it stands now, you do have to take into consideration multiple layers of things. And obviously conduct in prison is going to be the first and foremost thing that they have to take into consideration. Certainly it does not hurt to have that additional support. And there is something that was passed called Marcy's Law that actually allows families of victims or victims themselves to be able to go in front of judges at this point and voice their concerns of somebody being released. The biggest key component is their conduct while incarceration.
We have a question here.
Hi, good evening. What is the statistics on victims that are female versus male in terms of being sexual predators or victims?
One in 3 statistics, but remember with statistics, you're also dealing with unreported statistics. So an example is sexual assault, rape. 1 in 3 will be a victim of rape or sexual. Then you take into account crime, abduction, or kidnapping, then that statistic jumps dramatically. So you can only imagine what it is. So if you look around the room, I mean, you know, not too many people are too willing to share, and understandable, it's too willing to share if they were ever victimized, but it's pretty scary. I would pretty much venture to bet that when you look around, 1 in every 3 here either has been a victim or is going to be a victim.
Rob, here's a question right here.
First, thank you so much for coming up, and thanks for your passion. We had a loss similar to yours in our family.
I'm
very
sorry.
sorry.
Ideally, what was supposed to have happened that night that Reagan was attacked if the ankle monitor worked? Because I really don't understand why. What would have happened if it was working right?
If it was working right, he actually would not have been on the street that night. He would have already been back in incarceration because he had violated the terms of his post-control release multiple times. He had tampered with the device. He was outside inclusionary zones. He was outside after curfew hours. He should have been back in prison.
Rob, if you had a daughter that was 21 and they had pepper spray, how often would you tell them to carry that when they're out in public?
Yeah, I have a 19-year-old daughter, and I tell her all the time, it's in questionable areas. Obviously, you don't want to fall into complacency, but I try to instill, doing things in groups with friends. But whenever, especially at night, she is 19, so she goes out a lot, especially walking to a car from work. I mean, she works at a health club, but still she's the first one in and the last one to leave. So at those times, that is always in your hand, ready to go to the car, because you can imagine 19 years old, big fitness gym in New Jersey, parking, last car in a lot. So of course, I didn't tell you so that's what she's doing now. And yeah, so it's a pretty scary thing. I would say when you use it, just use it, at your discretion. Obviously daylight, well-populated areas, least likely you're gonna be attacked if it's a group of people around, but anywhere you feel questionable.
And what's your website, Rob?
SDI, the number 7, HIIT.com. And Lisa knows that I do this in our town, especially. I do this as community service. I offer a power lunch, and because, like I said, and Lisa's the same passion now, it's because it's necessary, because it matters, and it has to happen. It will never go away, and we have to really educate ourselves on raising awareness and teaching self-defense.
We've got a couple questions online. We welcome all our online guests tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you. We've got a couple of questions from folks watching online. First one, how was the perpetrator, fresh out of prison, in possession of a gun? Were they able to determine how he got one?
Thank you for the question. He was able to obtain one illegally. So where he got it and how he got it, no, they were never able to determine that.
Okay, it's a second question. At what point did Ohio law change to be so liberal to begin with? From your presentation, it seems a liberal change of the law gave mentally ill prisoners the right to be free. What can we as Ohio residents do to pressure our legislators?
Thank you for that question as well. That truth in sentencing law dates back to 1986, when the ability to add time to incarceration was taken away. The Reagan Tokes Act, which is now law, that was signed on December 21st of 2018, reversed that. Incarceration time can now be added for those who are failing to reform appropriately. What you can do to support it is write to your local legislator and encourage them to pass the second portion, which is phase 2, which deals with addressing ankle monitors in real time, to the point of the question that we had earlier, because if it's monitored in real time and there are consequences for violations, the people committing the crimes would be put back in prison and not out on the street, allowing to be roaming free and wreaking havoc.
First of all, to Rob. Rob, sorry we had to cut you a little short. We've had many self-defense classes here at Empower You over the last 8 years. We'd love to have you come back and do your full program for us.
Thank you very much.
We do 2 semesters a year. The next one starts in March and April, and so we'll see if we can work out a time. Let's thank Rob for coming down from Columbus. A great thing. Not many people would just jump on a plane and come and talk to a group of people and disrupt their work week and just their life to tell their empowering tale. But we sure want to thank Lisa McCrary-Tokes for joining us tonight. So I know you've been out of Ohio for a while, but we brought you a little treat maybe to take back with you. Some original Skyline and some hot sauce and some crackers to at least remind you of our great state of Ohio. So let's thank Lisa one more time.
Thank you.
And we hope to see everybody, hope to see you on Thursday night when I talk about the deficit mess. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you for coming to Empower You.
I'm just gonna, I'll have some flyers. I'm just gonna go to my car, some flyers to hand out so you can follow up and ask me any questions online.